The success of the Miami Grand Prix acted as one of the strongest indications yet of how much of a breakthrough Formula One has made in the United States. But one person looking to get more American presence on the grid is Michael Andretti, the son of 1978 world champion Mario Andretti and head of the Andretti racing empire. Back in February, Mario revealed on Twitter that Michael was planning to set up a new Formula One team targeting a place on the grid as soon as 2024. It was not the first time Andretti had tried to get a place on the F1 grid. Last year, it was heavily involved in talks with Sauber, which runs Alfa Romeo's Formula One team, about taking over the company and getting a place on the grid. But talks fell apart at the 11th hour, meaning Andretti was unable to get a place in F1 for this year. It also meant his plans to put American Indycar driver Colton Herta in one of the race seats fell through, but Herta is still in the frame to get an F1 seat should Andretti secure a team in the near future. Being an American race, it made sense that Andretti was in Miami for a series of meetings, but the response from the wider paddock has been lukewarm at best. To quote Andretti, there are millions of people embracing it, it's just not the right people at the moment. None of F1's existing players would deny that having a second American team would be a huge coup for the grid, particularly given the reputation and scale of the existing Andretti operation. The family mark has involvement in IndyCar, Indy Lights, Formula E, Extreme E and Supercars already, but as much as Andretti's interest points to F1's current strength and booming business, it is for that very reason that current teams are uneasy about letting someone else join their closed shop. It all comes down to money. At the moment, F1 teams make the bulk of their revenue through prize money, which is dished out by F1 based on the team's finishing position in the Constructors' Championship every year. The prize money total is currently split between 10 teams. Should a new team such as Andretti join, that would increase to 11 teams, meaning everyone gets a smaller percentage of the payout. This is known as dilution. The argument from the current F1 teams is that they have spent a significant amount of money to build themselves and the series into what it is today, and don't want to be getting a smaller piece of the pie just because someone else wants to join their party. This fear of dilution is something the F1 teams look to address through negotiations for the latest Concord agreement that was signed in 2020. Recognising that a new team would mean less money for everyone else, a $200 million fee was put in place for any interested party that would be split between the current 10 teams. It ensured that any new entry would have to be serious given the money it had to stump up, as well as protecting the value of the existing outfits. Andretti has maintained from the beginning that he has the $200 million in place to meet this requirement. But as business continues to boom in F1, the fear is that this won't offset the dilution of the revenue that the teams would encounter. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff claimed the limited number of F1 entries was what drove F1's value, with the addition of new teams risking this being diluted. Red Bull team principal Christian Horner acknowledged that money would always be a significant factor in the talks, and that the responsibility lay with F1 as the commercial rights holder to decide on the approach it wants to take. Horner felt the $200 million fee put a minimum value on any entrant, but stressed the importance of looking at the long-term picture. For the first time in a long time, F1 has 10 strong, successful teams, none of whom seem to be struggling financially. Although the $200 million payout would be split between the existing teams, it would be a one-time payment of $20 million, meaning after receiving their share, teams will get nothing else and be left with a smaller slice of the prize money. Smaller operations such as Haas and Alfa Romeo are more reliant than the bigger teams on this prize money. Their argument is that should the economic landscape change in F1, much as it did when the COVID-19 pandemic hit and led to a huge downturn in the sport's income, the dilution would come back to bite them. It has left Andretti struggling to get support from the teams. McLaren and Alpine have made positive noises about the possible entry, but this is because McLaren and Andretti have history working together in the past on projects, while Alpine owner Renault is set to be Andretti's F1 engine supplier if the plan comes off. The challenge for Andretti will be to demonstrate not only that he has the resources in place to make a new team credible and competitive, but also to prove that the impacts of the new team would make up for the dilution of the prize money payouts. Being an American team and planning to field an American driver in Herta would surely help Andretti's argument. Yet as Miami booms and Vegas beckons, the skeptics may see more American races as being beneficial to F1's growth than what an American team might be able to generate. There is a long process for Andretti to work through if he wants to make his F1 dreams a reality. The FIA is yet to formally call for any interest to set up a new team, which is a process it must go through if it wants to add to the existing grid. But Andretti already has plans in place to begin setting up an F1 facility in Indianapolis this summer, which would work in tandem with an existing site in Europe. Andretti acknowledged this as a risk, but he said it was one worth taking as he wants to get the ball rolling for his new F1 team. F1 must consider the added value a new team would give, the extra safety of having another entrant should anyone pull out, and how it might impact the prize money payouts moving forward. The structure F1 has in place right now works for the teams already sat at the table, meaning it will take a lot of convincing, probably beyond the $200 million dilution fund on offer, to get them properly behind Andretti's F1 plans.